Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'm Peg Olson. I'm the chair of Faith Linking and Actions Board. And I have a couple of things that I need to say to begin. Number one, that we must acknowledge that we are standing on and benefiting from the unceded lands of the Penobscot Nation. The other thing that I need to announce to people is the Martin Luther King breakfast that's supposed to be happening tomorrow is being postponed. So watch the paper and TV for when it's going to be held. Oh, February 20. So I guess, thank you very much. All right. Most of us gathered here today have little awareness of the daily racism and oppression experienced by people of color. Our journey to being anti-racist is hard. It begins by learning from the lived experience of people of color. We're here to create space within ourselves to learn from people of color the effects of racism on their lives so that we can grow as anti-racists. We're here to celebrate, honor, and learn from the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech on August 28, 1963, from the Lincoln Memorial. This reading is a series of excerpts from that speech. So let us listen to the words of Martin Luther King. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, Black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has been marked for insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that that bank of justice is bankrupt. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. There's something I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads to the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of doing wrong deeds, wrongful deeds. Let us not satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inexorably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and the righteousness like a mighty stream. Even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of the creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children would one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain be made low, the rough places be made plain, and the crooked places be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
Greetings, dear friends and neighbors. Welcome to our multi-faith faith service this Sunday evening. It is great to see so many people in the hall. Let's give ourselves a big kind of yay. It's good to be here. And I also want to welcome those who are joining us today on Zoom. It's a wonderful thing to be able to use technology to bring us all together in this space for this wonderful occasion. On behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor and Faith Linking in Action, I welcome you to this interfaith service. Well, this is a new event in some ways. It has a history that goes back to 2009, when a member of St. John's Episcopal Church, Roger George, had the idea of putting together a congregational service to honor the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He enlisted the help of speakers and singers at St. John's and All Souls, and he helped breathe this event into life. Over the years, the tradition has continued, and eventually Roger stepped back after the event had kind of become established and was alternating between the two congregations. Over the years, it has grown with professional and lay spiritual leaders and members of various church choirs all coming together to provide music. Nancy Diamond, one of our soloists today, has also been involved with this event for quite a long time. From the beginning? From the beginning, yeah. So thank you, Nancy. Speakers in the past have included Senator Collins and several state representatives, school board superintendents, and the mayor of Bangor. And we've even had a professor emeritus in New Testament from the Virginia Theological Seminary grace the pulpit of this service. After the 2020 service, I shared my interest in getting involved in helping plan future events, but alas, COVID kept us apart, and it was unsafe to plan large indoor gatherings. So the consensus was to postpone, which happened for a couple of years. Last summer, I continued the conversation with the leaders of St. John's and All Souls, who eventually felt that it was probably time to share the love and let somebody else take the lead in organizing this service. I shared this idea of leading the service with Suzanne Kelly, raise your hand, who is the co-chair of our Social Justice Committee here at the Unitarian Universalist Society. She liked the idea, but suggested that maybe we share this with a newly formed Faith Linking in Action group. And voila! The next generation of the Bangor Interfaith MLK service was born. I want to thank FLIA, our Faith Linking in Action, for picking up this important spiritual and civic event in our community. We hope that this tradition will continue for many, many years to come. One of the significant changes that we talked about was, instead of having a featured speaker, that we wanted to share in the process of this service and feature some more local people, people who are living in our community, who embody the spirit of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And doing the good work of creating equity and justice in our midst. So today we have three excellent speakers, or actually two excellent speakers. Amara Afiji, a college student from Bangor High School, who is actually, she's now in college, but she's going to be talking about her experience at Bangor High. We were hoping to have Molly and Dana from the Penobscot Nation, but I just got an email from her about half an hour ago saying that her fiance has COVID and she is testing negative right now, but as an act of gratitude and grace, she decided to not join us today. We are thankful for that, but sad that she was not able to join us, and later on we will hold a moment of silence for her and the Penobscot Nation. And finally, Omar Kante from the Islamic Center of Maine. You want to build a wave? Our speakers will share some of their experiences about racism and inequality and their work to undo the harm in our community through their truth-telling and their awareness raising. Today, as we hear the experiences of the prophetic words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and other prophetic leaders, let us come together in answering the call of being actively engaged in the struggle for equality and justice in Bangor and the world beyond. I'm now going to invite members who are going to help us light our candle of unity together. So, candle lighters, come forward.
As people of faith from the Jewish tradition, we bring the concept of tikkun olam, the recognition that this world, our world, is in need of repair, the hope that such repair is possible, and the belief that it is our sacred responsibility to engage in this work, bringing us all that much closer to wholeness, to unity, and to peace. Together we light the flame.
As people of faith in the Episcopal Christian tradition, in our baptismal covenant, we commit to strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being. Together we light the flame.
I'm also joining and representing the voice of the Episcopal Church in our community and the Anglican communion around the world. I want to ask that we all remember and hold up tonight in our celebration of Dr. King all those who have given their lives to resist the evils of racism and hatred wherever they may be. Thank you.
As a people of faith from the Islamic tradition, we bring our belief that all people are equal as the sons and daughters of Adam, peace be upon him, and our duty to prevent oppression, aid the oppressed, and make service and kindness to others central to our faith. We light the flame.
I am a Unitarian Universalist and member of Faith Linking in Action. The spirit of Martin Luther King, both my faith community and Faith Linking in Action work from the deeply felt premise that our shared humanity, strengthened by the diversity of our ideas and beliefs, makes us a powerful, creative force and voice in our community's attempt to eradicate the harsh face of poverty.
Today, with respect for diversity and our religious traditions and moral belief systems that bring us to this place to honor the memory of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who called us to seek justice, equality, and do this through the transformative power of love. Thank you to our lighters, and now we will have a reading from the Islamic faith. Dina, are you going to? Okay, let's offer that from the pulpit.
I'm honored to be here today. Thank you for having me read this verse from the Quran. I chose this specific verse that I will be reading now because the Quran here has uprooted the foundation of racial, familial, and tribal bias, which becomes the source of most evil. All human beings are the progeny of Adam and Eve. No race is superior to another one. Rather, in the sight of God, the status of nobility of a person is founded on the consciousness towards God. The division of mankind into tribes and races is merely to give people identity. Thus, we should put effort to know and respect each other regardless of our race, tribe, or background. This verse truly reflects Islam's stance on racism and discrimination. This specific concept has become the core of Dr. Martin Luther King in his famous speech, I Have a Dream. The verse says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O people, surely we have created you of a male and a female and made you tribes and families that you may know each other. Surely the most honorable of you with Allah is the one who is the most righteous. And Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things. Part 9, verse 13 in the Holy Book Quran. Thank you.
I'd now like to invite Rabbi Samuel Weiss to come forward and offering some music, a song. Yeah.
Rabbi Sam Weiss, I'm the rabbi at Congregation Bethel, just up the hill. I bring a melody today I'd like to share with you, which sets to music, a teaching from Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav. It's a teaching that doesn't speak at all about God in any sort of direct way, but rather offers a reflection on the nature of this world, the world that we all share. And it says in translation, all the world is a very narrow bridge. The key thing is to not be afraid. So I'm going to sing this in Hebrew. It's fairly repetitive. Feel free to join in if you like the sound of it. And then at the end we'll do some yais and dais, which is in a way a sacred form of expression in Judaism. Those yais and dais. So please join me for those. Oh, great. Kol haolam kulo gesher tsar meod. Gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod, kol haolam kulo. Gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod, kol haolam kulo. Gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod, kol haolam kulo. Gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod, gesher tsar meod. V'ha'ikar
Next in our program is a speech by Amara Fiji. Amara Fiji is an internationally recognized nonprofit leader in environmental and social justice. At age 17, her advocacy efforts mobilized a grassroots effort to address the racism she and other students faced in the Bangor School District. Today, Amara marries her passions for racial justice and the environment as an effective organizer who centers storytelling to realize environmental justice, climate education, and outdoor learning for all youth.
My first game of Foursquare was a heated one. Despite never having played in Maryland, I was a natural at the game when I moved to Maine at age 9. A week into my 4th grade year in the Bangor schools, I had done it. I won my very first game. I remember feeling immense pride at that moment. However, these feelings were quickly replaced with shame, dread, and confusion as my opponent looked me in the eyes and called me a black monkey. I looked at them stunned, with tears in my eyes, and on my way home on the bus that day, I convinced myself it was my fault. I promised myself I would never do anything again that would result in something similar. And so I assimilated. I put my head down out of fear of being different. But the incident on the playground was not an isolated one. Throughout my time in the Bangor schools, I have been called much worse than what was said to me that day. I've been petted like a dog by people curious about hair that did not resemble theirs. I have been mistaken for other Black students by my teachers. I have had my accounts of these stories denied. The more these incidences occurred, the more I prayed to be the same, to be normal. However, I was not normal. I was different. As one of only a dozen Black students at my high school, I wore this difference on my skin and could not hide it. While grappling with my identity, I rekindled my passion for the outdoors. As a Black immigrant youth, I was cautioned against going outside. The outdoors was viewed as a scary place, harmful to Black and brown bodies. What had happened to me on the playground those years ago affirmed this fact. As curious as I was about the natural world, I was too scared to explore this passion of mine. In addressing this fear, I committed to unabashedly exploring my passion. Although initially frightening, I found so much joy and excitement in the natural world, even from nature walks and short hikes. My journey was one I then brought to those in my community, facilitating outdoor learning opportunities for fellow students of color at my high school. This newfound passion allowed me to grow in myself and recognize the importance of community. In my senior year, I formed the Multicultural Student Union, for fellow students to have a safe space to share experiences similar to what I faced. We ultimately took concerns for a more inclusive school environment to the school board. When these concerns were dismissed, we shared our experiences in a Bangor Daily News article, which garnered immense community support. With this support, I outlined a set of demands to foster a more inclusive school culture, which secured over 6,500 signatures. I met regularly with my superintendent and school board about these concerns. These demands have been implemented today, including conducting a formal investigation, hiring diversity, equity, and inclusion school officials, and a district-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion training for faculty and students. I continue to work towards a more equitable and inclusive society. My passions have led me to coordinate other grassroots movements and advance successful legislation to address education inequities. This work is often challenging and demanding, and I have faced imposter syndrome, fear, and feelings of tokenism in these white-dominated spaces. But I am committed to ensuring all people feel like they belong and are represented in the classroom, in the natural world, and beyond. I challenge you all to do the same in the spirit and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As he once said, make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a better person of yourself. a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. Thank you.
And Amara, I hope you're watching and wish you could see the expressions on people's faces of gratitude for your deep sharing. Thank you. Thank you, Jack, for that wonderful interlude. Our next speaker, Ambassador Molly and Dana, again was not able to join us today, but I would like to hold some sacred space for Molly and Dana and for the Penobscot Nation, on whose land we, as we heard earlier, live and benefit from the land. So let us hold a moment of silence, sending out our gratitude as we recognize the Penobscot Nation as a valuable part of our community. And let us send positive intentions out to the Penobscot Nation for their sovereignty and recognition as a community here. Thank you. Nancy, would you come and offer some words to us?
I'm going to be reading an excerpt from Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail, which was written in response to the white clergy of Birmingham, who were not happy with him being in their city leading the civil rights movement. They believed that we needed to still be patient and that now is not the time. Of course, there is nothing new about this kind of civil disobedience. It was evidenced sublimely in the refusal of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to obey the laws of Nebuchadnezzar on the ground that a higher moral law was at stake. It was practiced superbly by the early Christians who were willing to face hungry lions and the excruciating pain of chopping blocks rather than submit to certain unjust laws of the Roman Empire. To a degree, academic freedom is a reality today because Socrates practiced civil disobedience. And in our own nation, the Boston Tea Party was represented a massive act of civil disobedience. We should never forget that everything Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal, and everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was illegal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even so, if I had been there at that time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers. I must make two honest confessions. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white Citizens Council or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate. who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that the present tension in the South is a necessary phase of the transition from an obnoxious negative peace in which the Negro passively accepted his unjust plight to a substantive and positive peace in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. Like a boil that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be opened with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and light, injustice must be exposed with all the tension and exposure creates to the light of human conscience and the air of national opinion before it can be cured. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, for that wonderful reading and that important message from King. When I hear the response of clergy and whatnot, there's a part that makes me very angry, which leads to our next song here. We are a gentle, angry people, and we're going to invite you all to sing along. The words will magically, look at that, show up on our screen. And thank you, Rabbi Sam, for joining me. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing I'd now like to invite our next speaker, Omar Kante, to come up to the pulpit.
بسم الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I'd like to begin first with the Islamic greeting of Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May God's peace and blessings and mercy be upon all of you. We begin in the name of God, the most merciful and the most compassionate. Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, the reading that we heard earlier, that we can, by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that we can never be satisfied. Indeed, we can never be satisfied unless and until every soul is free from all oppression, whether black, white, what have you, male or female, young or old. Every soul is free from the oppression that we inflict upon one another as human beings, that we are free. Some of them are imprisoned by our physically imprisoned. Some of us are economically imprisoned. Some of us are imprisoned in our hearts and our minds. Some of us are spiritually imprisoned. In any case, all has to be free in order for all of us to enjoy the fruits of peace and justice in this temporal world that we live in. As Sister Dina spoke about earlier, that the Islamic tradition is rich in teaching the necessity for human beings to treat each other with equality and justice. From the very beginning of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, as he was preaching his message, it is always customary to try to get the leaders and the wealthy people and the powerful people to buy into your message. If they buy into your message, then it's easier for the lower people, the peasants, to come along because they feel protected when they follow. It was one occasion that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, was told by the leaders of his society that if you want us to sit with you and listen to you and accept your religion, you have to, these poor people, these lower people, these slaves and these downtrodden people cannot come sit with us. And for a moment he entertained that I will come sit with you, because if they buy into it, then the entire society will buy into it. But as that thought entered his mind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, sent him a revelation. He said, don't you dare do it. Don't you dare do it. If they will sit with you, they will sit with the others. And he told us in his final sermon, a sermon in which he says to his people, "O my people, lend me an attentive ear, for I know not after this year that I shall be amongst you any longer." And amongst this final sermon, what he talked about, he says, all of humankind are created from Adam and Eve. No Arab has any superiority over a non-Arab. This is 1,400 years ago, 1,444 years ago. No Arab has any superiority over a non-Arab. And no non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. No white has any superiority over black. No any black has any superiority over white, except those who are righteous in their conduct. As Dr. King says, that we're not judged by the color of our skins, but by the content of our character. As Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam said 1,400 years ago, you are judged by the content of your character, your righteousness as a human being. God does not see your skin, He does not see your wealth, He does not see anything except what you have deep inside the heart that He gave you. And we are told in our Quran, the holy book of the Muslims, that on the day of judgment, when we gather in front of God, the only hearts that will be allowed is the ones who come to God in the state of salim, in the state of cleanliness, in the state of purity of all evil that ails our hearts. That no other heart would be accepted by God on that day. So it is incumbent upon us in this world that we live in, that our number one task as human beings is to continue to scrub the evil, the dark evil that sits in our hearts every single day. That is our number one task as human beings. For we are all fallible. We are susceptible to injustice, whether we realize it or we don't realize it. So we must be conscious of ourselves and conscious of those around us in order to continue to scrub those things off. When I thought about Dr. King and his work, and the likes of him, the likes of Gandhi, it reminded me of a surah or a chapter in the Quran where God said, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, I swear by time. God says He swears by time itself that all of humankind, the rich, the poor, the white, the black, the young and the old, the male and the female, all of humankind are in loss. He says, except the few of them. And who are those few? He says, those who believe in their Creator and they work to do good. And then they call on other people to also do good. And then they call on them and they call on one another to be patient. And they call on another to truth and perseverance. He did not say the exceptional people in the world are the ones who believe in God and that's it. No. He didn't say the ones who believe in God and they do good and that's it. He says the one who believes in God and they do good and they call others to do good and they call others to truth, they call others to patience and perseverance. They are the exceptional people, the likes of Dr. King and the Gandhis of the world. It's interesting, in the end of this chapter, God said, and they call each other to patience and perseverance in this work that they're going to be doing. In this work in believing God, in this work in doing good themselves, in this work in calling others to do good, they are going to need this exceptional people. They are going to need patience and perseverance in this journey because it's not going to be an easy one. It's going to be a difficult one. That is why many of them don't live for very long. That is why many of them don't live for very long. Let's ask ourselves, how many just leaders in the world, in the human history, have stayed in power for decades? How many just leaders in human history have been able to manage to be in power, continue to spread peace and justice among society for decades? No, they end their lives very quickly because they often have enemies that will not allow, that would fight and will not allow peace and justice to reign. So why God said they are going to need those who commit themselves to this work of doing good and calling others to do good, they're going to need patience and perseverance. They're going to need strength because they're going to have mighty people coming after them. They're going to have people with many resources who will stand in their way. This is the story of the prophets of God. The likes of Abraham, the likes of Moses, the likes of Jesus Christ, the likes of Noah, the likes of all of these prophets that we are told in our scriptures. What is the story of their lives other than fighting to instill justice and peace in society against those who have the power and might in society? And for anyone who follows their footsteps, and this is going to be their life, there's going to be great obstacles put in their way if their lives is not taken. So we are told that this work will take patience and perseverance. Your name will be tarnished. Your reputation will be ruined. It is only a few decades ago that the British government has removed Gandhi from their terrorist list. Gandhi was considered a terrorist by the British Empire. Why? Because he says, let my people be free. And what did they do? The man did not even have shoes to put on. What are they afraid of? His speech, because he wasn't willing to be silent. Now, they don't bother anyone who is kept silent and goes home and takes care of his own life and his own business. That's why God says it is not just you do good or you call others to do good. He says you must do good and you must call others to do good. And when you decide to do good all by yourself and keep quiet, nobody will bother you. You go ahead and feed the poor and leave us alone and we won't bother you. However, when you come to us and you tell us to also do good, then we have a problem with you. Then they have a problem with you. It is why God said, then you must, this is the work, you must do good yourself, and that is difficult for ourselves to do because we're human and we're fallible, and sometimes we just don't have that, we don't have it in us ourselves to do good. But the standard of God is pure, that I can't call others to do good if I'm not doing good myself. So the job must start with myself. First and foremost, I must do good, I must be just, and then I call others to do so. And be patient in that journey of any obstacle that may come your way, of any harm that may come your way, and persevere through it. For this life is temporary for all of us, for the just and the unjust. And it's the same God we all head towards for Judgment Day. It is inspiring to hear many of the talk that's been done. Especially, I really felt saddened by the story of Amara because I contrasted with my own story. But my story was different. I thank God. I came to Maine. My introduction to Maine was a storm of 1998. From a small village in Africa. 90-degree weather every day. Never seen snow, ever heard of it. And then is the ice storm. But I wasn't scared. I didn't run. I was a young child. Didn't know where I was going. I was told I was going to America. I was excited. I didn't sleep the night before. I arrived here not knowing anything, not knowing the language. Didn't speak English. But, as I said, I'm a little saddened when I hear the stories like Amara because, like I said, my story was completely different. And to this day, it remains to be different. And I thank God for that. And that's why this conversation can be very complex. Because we all have such individualized stories. Our experiences can be so different. I came into a society in Bangor that was nothing but wonderful to me to this day. I went to middle school, I went to high school, I went to college. And I find nothing but wonderful people. Now, that may be God's protection. But I wish to narrate that story as well. The children in the neighborhood that I went to welcomed me with open arms, even though I didn't speak the language. They taught me the language. They played with me. They invited me to their events. They didn't make me feel I was an outsider. And the adults were very protective. I went to middle school, didn't speak the language. They provided me with wonderful tutors that would take me outside of the classroom when I wasn't able to understand the teachers. Very patient with me. They taught me at my pace until I was able to grasp the language. And all throughout high school, they gave me tutors. I would like to narrate one example. One of the tutors that I had lost touch with this wonderful woman for many years. I was at my cousin's graduation at the Cross Insurance Center. I saw her. I recognized her. So I go up to her and introduce myself. She knew me when I was a child. Now I'm older, got facial hair, she doesn't recognize me. She looked at me perplexed. I introduced myself, I told her who I was and that she was my tutor in middle school. And she was amazed. She says, "What are you doing today?" I said, "I'm going to graduate school at University of Maine," and she broke down crying. At that moment, she saw the fruits of her labor. And I was happy that she gets to see that. And hopefully she holds that as a memory for her forever. And that shows me that the people that I came to. Now, I have my incidences of racism that happened to me in this society as well. But my experience was so overwhelmingly positive that I don't dare speak even of those moments that somebody judged me in a way that I can interpret as being racist. And I am thankful for that. But my cousin has a different story. He was one of the ones last year who were racially profiled at Bengal High School and were called a monkey and all kinds of things. But I would conclude that we can't close our eyes to it. We can't rely on our own story. We have to listen to one another. Listen, as one person said before, listen to each other's lived experiences. And join our hands together and continue this work as the likes of Dr. King and those who are doing it today. I thank you so much for your indulgence. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Omar. And now Peg is going to give us a few words before our offertory, and you are in for a real treat during the music.
So we are going to do a collection to help cover the costs of this particular event. And as we're doing that, Nancy Diamond is going to be accompanied by Mike, and she's going to sing for us or with us, Rise Up.
and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out. Move mountains, we're gonna walk it out. Move mountains, and I'll rise up. I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up. I'll rise like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, we'll bring it to its feet. Move mountains, and I'll rise up like the day. I'll rise up. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up. I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope. And for that we have each other. And for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, we'll rise. We'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, we'll rise like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
Huh. I don't know what happened.
Solidarity and commitment. Are we good? Oh, so you didn't hear any of that. Thank you. And you're welcome. Would you join me in our litany of solidarity and commitment as we have been inspired and seek to further inspire this journey together? I will be the leader. You all over here will be Group A, which makes you all Group B. We have gathered this afternoon from many different communities of faith with a wide variety of practices and beliefs. We share a commitment to racial justice, rejecting the inequalities and biases that seek to divide us. We celebrate the fresh energy and insight of an emerging generation of leaders that will guide and inspire new momentum for anti-racist actions and commitments. We honor the lived experiences of our elders, the strength of their legacy, and for all the ways they show us the truth of how the road has been paved.
Sometimes been silent. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people.
We applaud the tireless persistence and resilience of a middle generation of activists and trailblazers and their civic, professional, and communal leadership.
We commit to the words of Martin Luther King Jr. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We give thanks for a legacy of love emboldened by those of every generation. This is our commitment. We will practice love. We will pursue justice. We will come alongside our neighbors, strive together for fundamental rights and racial disparity, and our communities, and bring our places to worship.
Hear me. We will practice. We will fail. We will try again.
We will open ourselves to receive correction. We will not remain silent. We will not do nothing. We recognize that freedom is necessary ground for freedom. We do not walk alone. We march forward, refusing to turn back.
For all that has been, thank you. For all that is to come, yes.
So to close our service out, we're going to have Molly Webster and the UUSB choir lead us in a song that I feel like if you get absolutely nothing else out of this whole service, which you got a lot, let's face it, at least keep these words in mind. And this is going to be a call and response sort of song, so we invite you to rise in body or in spirit, to move to the music as you feel comfortable, as we sing our closing song. Molly, Jack, choir, take it away.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Till the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. That which touches me most is when we have the chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to us. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be one in that number as we stand against tyranny. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way that struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Thank you again to everyone for coming tonight. Thank you to those of you who are joining us on Zoom. And Atticus, if you can pull up the slide, I would love to see, have people see all the people who have contributed to making this wonderful service happen. May we see you again next year, either here or in another congregation, but let us be together again soon. Blessed be.